Hello and welcome. Another watercolour painting. This is the one we're doing and the one we've completed. We'll get into painting this in just a minute. It's a very loose watercolour, as you can see. The sky there, that's wet on wet paint, wet paint on wet paper. Same with the mountain. And there is our drawing there. You can see we've roughly sketched it out. I'm just putting basically clean water on here. There might be a little tiny bit of blue in there, not much. I washed the brush out before, so excuse any shadow you get. I'm doing this at 4 o'clock in the morning and I've got a light on, so but anyway, you'll still see what I'm doing quite clearly. So just wetting the sky area there. I won't spend too much time on the sky. There's two trees I've sketched out either side. You can see left and right coming out from the sides, and that will cover quite a bit of the sky anyway. So here we go with some cobalt blue. It's just wet on wet. And I will tilt the board just to get a nice diffused flow going. You don't always have to do this, but and I don't always. I've been doing it a lot lately. So I'm pretty happy with that. It's almost dry now. So I'm putting in a tiny bit of cadmium yellow just in the top here. And I'll go over that again with a Prussian blue mixed with a tiny bit of violet. I'll just go over that again later. It's just the tip of the mountain there. Just working out what I want to do here. All right, so that's some burnt umber there. More of that cadmium yellow. Just a light wash in through there. Bit heavier in places. putting a little bit of brown in here. That's just a bit of Payne's grey. And we'll let that dry, and then as we're working on other bits, that'll dry, and then we'll come back eventually and we'll put a mixture of Prussian blue and some violet over that area we did in the foreground. Right, doing the mountains here in the background. Just some Prussian blue here, mixed with a little bit of violet. This is going on dry paper in this section of the painting. Put some deeper blue in there, deeper Prussian blue, just to give the illusion of, dips and rises throughout that mountain. There's a little bit of shine on there from the overhead light. Well, we'll still work on that mountain. I'll put a tiny bit of violet in there, not much. And then we'll go over that again with a little bit more Prussian blue. So we've got a little bit of work to do on that background mountain. Not too much more though. And then we'll work on the foreground. We'll also work on those trees either side. There's also another tree on the left-hand side in the foreground there. So we've got that to work on. Here comes this a bit of violet in through here mixed with a tiny bit of Prussian blue. I'll just go back and get a bit more. That paint is not dry that I put on the mountain previously. It's still a bit wet, but this is the effect I want. Just this diffusing nicely. through here with a little bit of that purple there. And I'll get a little bit of Prussian blue and darken it up in some areas. All right. Yeah, I'm fairly happy with that. A bit more down here. This is sort of a peach colour. It's a really interesting colour, peach, P-E-A-C-H. I'm using some of this obviously here for this middle ground here. Just darken it up with that same colour, just a bit stronger. Just in some areas. Okay, so I'm going to work on that middle area as well. That's sort of a little rise or some sort of a hill there in front of the mountain that you can see in that looks like a sort of a yellow ochre brown type of colour right in the middle there of our painting. So I want to go over that. I'm just letting that paint dry a little bit more, and then I'll go over that with a little bit of violet and maybe even a tiny bit of Prussian blue again, just to give a bit more shape into that middle area of hills just in front of the mountain there. So we've got all that to do. Remember, I've got the trees to do either side of the painting and that tree in the foreground of the painting. A little bit of grass and some vegetation there as well in that foreground and the middle ground as well. So we'll do that too. And it should be taking even more shape once we get into that. So here we go with continuing on this middle area. Just some trees in the foreground first. Well, not really in the foreground, but in front of that those hills anyway. Here we go. Just a light impression of, just a rough impression of some trees there. That's all we want. Just fill in a bit more colour down here, down below. Just working out what to do here. Yeah, I'll put something, bit of vegetation in through here, some trees. Just some tone here in this middle ground area, just to vary it up a bit. Just some vegetation. There we go. Okay, that's okay. Working on these trees again, right here in the background. Just an impression of trees, just to give you the idea that there's some trees in the background there. Make sure your trees are different heights. You don't want everything looking the same like ducks in a row. You just want a little bit of variety there with the shape and the height of the different trees. Just working on this on these hills, just to give some more definition. Make them more three-dimensional. Just a very light wash here of some dark leaf green and a little bit of Prussian blue, not much at all, just a very, very light wash. I think it looks pretty good. Right, we're going to work on the side tree here now. This is Payne's Grey. And we'll put this Payne's Grey on thick, and also areas a bit lighter as well to give variation. There's going to be a lot of leaves in through where I'm painting now. A lot of foliage. But on the top of this particular tree, it'll be fairly sparse. I'll get a smaller, thinner brush fairly soon. The tree here in the foreground that I was telling you about. It's just a smaller tree. You could probably do without this tree if you wanted to. You just might want to stick to the trees either side of the painting, or you might just want to have one tree on the side of the painting. That might do it for you. Just one tree on the left hand or the right hand side. But I'm doing two trees, one either side, and also this one that I'm painting now in the foreground. Using a thinner brush now, as you can see. And we're going to cover this with some pretty thick, loose foliage. It won't be precise. It'll just be, it'll be really, really fluid. That'll be the foliage on this tree here in the front. This is some raw umber I'm putting down here as well. And I've just watered down the brush a little bit to spread this through. And I'll soften those edges soon. I'll just wash the brush in clean water and then dry it off a bit. So the brush is still damp but not wet. And I'll use that to, there you go, soften the edges here. Do that again, just wash it out, clean it with a tissue and with a damp brush, not wet, just soften those edges. Not saturated, but damp. So wash it out with clean water, dry it off with a tissue. The brush will still be damp and then you can soften the edges a bit if you feel they need softening. Some sap green going in here. Just in areas, maybe on the left-hand side here. All right, back to this tree. Darken up in areas using this Payne's grey. Want plenty of scraggly branches going through here. Just keep bringing those scraggly branches through. Keep it nice and thin. Just let the brush flow lightly and fairly freely. Don't apply too much pressure and try not to be too precise. Just, if you've got a light pencil line, follow it as best you can. Doesn't matter if you don't follow it exactly, no one really cares about that. Just leave your pencil lines in when you finish your painting, don't try and rub them out. It looks quite acceptable to have a few pencil lines here and there in a watercolour painting. I don't think you can rub them out anyway if you've got paint over them, so yeah, just leave them alone. And No one's going to be focusing on your pencil lines. And like I said, you might just want one tree on one side and that might do it for you. This tree or these branches just coming out from the sides. Not quite completely in the frame. Just putting some foliage, some very loose watercolour foliage over this tree here in the foreground. I'll be putting a bit of dark leaf green in with that foliage. Just a bit of dark leaf green in here. I'll go over with a bit more yellow ochre. I want these trees to look a little bit dark at the front because the trees are backlit. So they're not silhouetted, but almost silhouetted. A little bit more yellow ochre in there. We'll touch up with a bit more dark leaf green as well a bit later. All right, some foliage down the bottom of this tree. Remember I said I was going to put some foliage down here. Just some very loose impressions of foliage on this tree. I don't want too much up the top there. I want it fairly sparse up at the top of the tree. A little bit of yellow ochre in there as well, not much. This is just some grasses, some vegetation down the bottom here. Using Australian dark leaf green just down the bottom here. Just flicking it up there on the top there so we can see that it is grass. And we'll darken down below on that area where I'm painting in a second. There we go. Here we go on the right hand side. Just some foliage on these scraggly trees. We'll put a bit more foliage on this particular tree, right up to the top. This is yellow ochre. Okay. Bit more yellow ochre in here. We'll create some more branches down near the bottom. I think it needs that. I've got the pencil line in there for it anyway, so we'll do that in a moment. This is this Australian dark leaf green again going in. Just in areas through here, just to darken it a bit. Remember, this is supposed to, these trees here in the foreground are supposed to be backlit. That's looking all right. Okay, these branches down the bottom I was telling you about. I think we need something down here as well. And with a fairly dry brush, I'm going to just create some rough foliage down here closer. When I say dry brush, it is damp, but it's, you know, it's not very wet at all, but it is damp. I just want the bristles to just give that effect there, that rough effect. Just in here as well, just a bit. Could probably put another tree right in the middle, down further in the distance, but in that middle ground area. But I'm not going to worry about that. I think it looks all right. It looks almost okay. I want to put some shadow in as well. You can see those little trees right in the background. I want to put some shadow underneath them. So here we go. Just some shadow coming out there. It's not quite strong enough. I might strengthen that up a little bit. A bit more. It's a bit better. And I'll just soften that edge of that shadow back a little bit as well. Just with that damp brush. Dry it off with tissue and leaving the brush damp, not soaking wet, but just damp. After drying it off with tissue and just run it along and to just soften the edge like that. Yep, that'll do. And you've still got that shadow coming off the trees there. Just that subtle shadow there in the background. All right, so we might almost call it a day. Just put a tiny little wash here, very light wash of some yellow ochre. Just a very light wash, just in areas here. I don't want it to be overbearing, just a hint of colour there, not much. Putting some dark leaf green just in here on this tree, just in some spots again, there we go. Just to darken up just some areas there, because it is backlit, as I said before. Excuse my shadow. As I said, I'm doing this at 4 in the morning and I've got a bright light, so it's not ideal. I prefer to work with natural light. Anyway, you can see what I'm doing. Just putting my signature in here. Nearly at the end. I'm yet to take that masking tape off around the edges. That'll leave a nice clean border. Just a little bit more of this peach in some areas. All right, I'm happy with that. Take off the masking tape. Go to 1 to 10, get that light masking tape. Well, there's a bit of shadow there, so I'll hold this up for you, because that light's casting that shadow. So I'll hold it up for you. That's our finished product. I'll put it on the bench in a second. Just a loose watercolour painting there. Just some trees either side, mountains, some middle ground, the foreground there, some trees and some shrubs as well. There it is on the bench. Don't forget to like it and subscribe, and click the bell icon for further paintings coming up. Really appreciate it. And we're just growing this channel. It's fairly new, and we can have fun and paint together and learn together. And remember, we learn by our mistakes. If you make a mistake, don't get frustrated. Keep going and you will improve. You'll develop your own styles, or your own style, and you know, you will have failures. Even the best watercolor artists have failures, so don't give up. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.